Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, where I watch shit so you don't have to. And today I'm here to talk about Season 3, Episode 3 of HBO's Succession, entitled The Disruption. Pretty, I think, clear what the disruptions were here. I think that there were two. I think maybe the title's focusing on, I think, the one that's most clearly a disruption, which was Kendall setting up these speakers to play this Nirvana song "Rape Me" while Shiv's trying to do like a town hall meeting with the Waystar employees. A brutal prank. I don't know if he meant it to undermine her, because I don't know if he knew that she was going to be doing that, but that's certainly how it came off. And yeah, really brutal moment for Shiv. And then the other disruption, I think, is the reverse, where Kendall's about to go on this talk show with this woman, Sophia Wobu, I think he said her name was, who's been just completely dragging him through the mud throughout the entirety of this episode. And right as he's about to go on, Shiv releases this statement that essentially airs out all of his very personal and terrible, dirty laundry. And yeah, it stings, because of course they're siblings, right? So they know where to hurt each other. They know how to do it best. And I don't know if Kendall's was intentional for her, but she took it that way and very much came back at him with something equally as brutal. So I guess, after I don't want to say a calm episode last week, because they mainly spent, most of this episode, most of that episode with Kendall trying to convince his siblings to come on board. They weren't at each other's throats or anything like that. But now this week we're very much back at everyone being pitted up against one another. So there's before I actually get into it, because what I want to do is, with this episode, the way events took place, I kind of want to discuss what happened with specific characters. But before I start on that, I kind of want to talk about, again, and I think I talk about this a lot as it pertains to this show, but I don't think there's any show on TV, maybe ever, that holds your hand less than this show does. Some of this show's biggest moments, and I say it all the time, that you can't just, take what we know to be a great scene, show it to somebody who doesn't watch the show and say this is evidence of how good this show is, because they're just not going to get it. But this show does so much work beneath the surface, and I talk about it all the time, but I'm going to talk about it again here because I think it's important. The fact that the fact that Shiv put out that statement on Kendall holds a little bit more weight because of things that happened earlier in the episode. Because on the face of things, it's a shitty thing to do to your brother, to put out his personal business like that, to air him out like that publicly. But I think what's interesting about this is that earlier in the episode, Logan essentially asks Shiv to do that very thing. He says he suggests that he wants more public support from her, that she's kind of like shying away from everything, and he thinks it would help him if she really came out there and spoke out against Kendall. And he says some of the things that that Shiv put in that letter, a lot of Kendall's personal stuff. And she seemed very hesitant to do that. He asked, "Do you trust me?" And she says, "Yeah," but then goes like, "On what exactly?" And she kind of hedges on it. She really stutters on offering support. So at the beginning of the episode, she's very hesitant to really throw Kendall under the bus fully, even though, up to this point, she's been very vocal about her desires. But when it comes down to actually really choosing sides and saying, I'm going to side with my father over my brother, and I'm going to do what Logan asked, which Logan doesn't give a fuck if this is his son or not. He wants to destroy him. So, Logan essentially asking Shiv to be on board with that destruction, she's very hesitant. But then after the Nirvana scene, now she goes completely, that was enough to push her overboard. So now I feel like that statement for us as the viewer holds a little bit more weight, because we know that earlier in the episode, she was opposed, or at least very hesitant, to taking that sort of action against Kendall when Logan suggested it. But after she feels like he I don't want to say disrespected her, but like after he embarrassed her or put her out on Front Street in front of the whole company, now she's like on a revenge type kick, right? Now she's like, fuck him, and now I'm gonna go after him. So, I think those are the kinds of things that make these scenes so impactful, because now when you see this letter and how she's pressing Roman and Connor to sign it, and she's like, I want to put this out tonight. I would like she's coming for blood. And I love the fact that even though that's bad on its surface, it means so much more knowing that just 30 minutes ago in the episode time, she was essentially asked to do this and was very hesitant to do it. And I think that says a lot about how well this show is written, that they don't just have these big moments that are easy to understand on the surface. They've spent time building out these characters, letting us know these characters, what drives them, what upsets them, what they're okay with doing, all those sorts of things, right? So now that when they have this moment where she's presented with, I want you to side with me and I want you to throw Kendall under the bus, she doesn't say no, but she seems very hesitant and then ends up doing it. And I feel like that shows that for her, what Kendall did hurt much more than I think even Kendall meant it to, because he doesn't know that she was offered that opportunity to throw him under the bus and refused it essentially. But now his actions caused her to do that, and I think that's going to set up, I think, probably some misunderstandings between them. And I'm not saying that in a loose sense, like, oh, it's going to be a misunderstanding. No, I mean like a literal misunderstanding. Like he's probably not understanding how his stunt impacted her, and then she might end up regretting how her statement impacts Kendall. So I think that's just some really great work from this show. And it's one of those things, like I always say about the show, you can't just watch it on a surface level. You got to look for these things and you got to notice these things. And it helped me, especially on a second watch, because I watched it twice, especially on a second watch, to see like, oh shit, like that statement that Shiv put out at the end of the episode is me watching when I watched it the second time. At the earlier in the episode with the Logan conversation, I'm like, oh, that's the same shit she ended up putting in the statement later. So she wasn't even on board with this shit at first, and now the Nirvana shit made her do it. So really good stuff there from this show. But I'm gonna stop repeating myself here. So I want to talk about each character individually, not each character, but I have a few characters I want to talk about individually and what happened with them in this episode. So I want to start with Jerry. Jerry's kind of like the figurehead CEO here. We know Logan really wants it for Shiv. He wants her to actually do all the actual work of it, and for Jerry to just kind of be the face of it. And he undermines Jerry at every opportunity. And I can't say every opportunity because we only see it for a portion at the beginning of the episode. But Jerry says something like, she wants to do something with some Israeli thing or whatever. And then that one other guy whose name I can never remember takes it back to Logan, and Logan's just like, kill it. Like, we're not doing that. And I really thought the line, which Jerry didn't hear, but we did, that I thought it was brutal when they compared her to Pinocchio, saying that she was a puppet coming to life. That was brutal, because it followed him saying something, Logan saying something to the effect of, I hope our acting CEO isn't acting too much. And then the Pinocchio line dropped. I'm like, damn, man, that's like, they're really being brutal on Jerry. And I think we as the fans customarily kind of agree that Jerry is good for it. Jerry's smart. She knows what she's doing, but she's being completely dismissed by Logan and disrespected and undermined right in front of her. He says, like, don't fucking hover. Or something. Like, he's being very dismissive of her. And I wonder if that's going to come back to bite him, especially since that, as far as everyone knows, she is in charge. So I wonder if at some point she could start using the perception of her power as real power. So I'm curious what's going to happen there. But that's all I want to say about Jerry. But yeah, they were Logan in particular was very disrespectful of her in this episode. So Tom has a meeting with, I'm assuming, some sort of consultant. Shiv refers to him as your guy. He doesn't specify who this person is when he suggests that Greg meet with this person as well. But apparently this person tells him that given the description of this quote unquote John Doe, which we know is Tom. So Tom basically told this guy the actual situation, presented it as a John Doe. And this guy told him that he doesn't see any way that this John Doe doesn't go to jail. And so Tom then offers to Logan and to Shiv to essentially lay down on the sword and to take the L for Logan. And I thought this was interesting in two ways. One, Shiv goes, oh, no, you can't do that, as a wife should, right? But then goes, well, actually, it's not that really bad of an idea, and like lays out all these pros to it. And the idea that, again, Shiv is so willing to sell out for this position that she's willing to let Tom, her own husband, fall on the sword for Logan is just like, man, like those two are destined, I think, for a huge, I'm just gonna say like a huge argument. I was trying to find like a more sophisticated word for it, but I think they're destined for a huge fallout. And yeah, I was like, wow, she's really just gonna kind of just go along with this. Like, oh no, 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 don't do that. No, you can't do that. Everyone's doing. She says, I'm like, everyone's doing somersaults for my father, and then she goes, yeah, but it's not that bad of an idea. Like, okay, well, you're really willing to do this. And then the second reason that this is interesting is that after Tom speaks with Logan and essentially says like he's willing to take the L for this, and Logan seemed genuinely pleased, like, and genuinely grateful. You know, he says thank you, Tom, and whatever. And then Tom walks away, and he calls what sounded like a law firm to me, something, something, and something. You know how they do that when it's a law firm. And he says he wants to schedule a consultation with a Roy Hendon. Now, I'm assuming, I don't know if this is the case, but I'm assuming that Roy Hendon is the same consultant that told him that he doesn't see any way that this person, this John Doe, quote unquote, doesn't go to jail. I'm assuming that's the same person, this Roy Hendon person. And I'm wondering what this call means. Like, is this Tom essentially calling him to say, what do you think of, you know, my odds are if I, you know, cop to these crimes, and, you know, how long will I be in jail? Or is this a thing where maybe he's looking for a way out? Like he's not so sold on Waystar, but I think it's probably more like him just preparing for the worst case scenario, which is unfortunate for Tom. You know, he's you know, throughout the show's history, he's always been willing to bend over backwards for Logan, but this is an entirely different level. Like, I'm willing to take this level of fall for you, and Logan has shown Tom no respect whatsoever to earn that kind of sacrifice from Tom. So yeah, I'm really curious if Tom is going to have a difficult arc this season between potentially taking the fall for this, not taking the fall for this, and being at odds with Logan, and then I'm almost certain something's going to happen with him and Siobhan. At the very least, a blow up, a fight, an argument, whatever the case may be. But yeah, Tom's going some interesting places as well. So I want to talk about Kendall a little bit now as well. Kendall spends the majority of this episode pretending like he doesn't give a fuck about how much slander he's getting across the airwaves. You know, like they say, all publicity is good publicity, and Kendall seems to be taking that to heart, but almost he's overdoing it. Like, he's over laughing, he's over blowing off like all of these terrible things that are being said about him. And in every situation that this happens, it reaches a point where everyone else around him feels awkward. When they're doing the good tweet, bad tweet in the limo, somebody reads a tweet and everybody gets kind of okay. And then when they're watching Sophie on TV at this party or whatever, same deal. He's laughing and everybody else kind of like, you know, looking at each other in the background. And I'm wondering, like, why is he trying so hard? Because, I mean, it's one thing to kind of like, you know, brush it off. This isn't a big deal. I'm not worried about it. That's, you know, normal. But he's like making it, oh, this is so funny. Maybe I should go on this show. Like, he's like, all bad decisions. And he's trying to save face in front of everybody to an insane degree. And I'm wondering if this is a combination of, one, maybe feeling like he deserves this, like some guilt over what he looked the other way on as far as the cruises, over, you know, throwing his father under the bus when, you know, we know that his father covered up the, would you call it a murder? I can't remember what, he didn't murder that guy, but they went on his recklessness caused someone to die, put it that way. But, you know, Logan covered that up for him. So I'm wondering if he's kind of like soaking in this abuse because he feels like he deserves it. And then I also think it's also like a defense mechanism, you know, like he's deep down inside, he's really hurt by everything that's being said, because we know Kendall's that kind of guy. His whole persona is an act. It's a performance. And we know that deep down inside, Kendall's really soft. He's weak, easily intimidated. And I wonder if this is like a defense mechanism as well. I don't think it's one or the other. I think it's both. I think it's a defense mechanism, and I think he feels guilty. And I'm interested in seeing the show explore that the rest of this season. I see in the preview for next week, Kendall's going to be actually meeting with Logan in person. It looks like Adrian Brody is there as some sort of mediator. I don't know what role Adrian Brody is going to be playing, but really interesting. And I know one of the Skarsgård brothers is here as well. I bet you that's probably going to be Roy Hendon. Alexander Skarsgård, the one from True Blood. I think he's in here as well. So I'm really curious where Kendall's going. It seems to me like he's really struggling to deal with the abuse. But then at the end of the episode, I don't know about you guys, but it kind of looked to me like, and I'm assuming because this is how it played out in in real time in the show. We see, the FBI arrives with to actually raid Waystar headquarters. Eventually Logan can't tell the federal authorities to fuck off anymore. They're actually gonna come in and do what they got to do, and he agrees to cooperate. Everything's being raided, and then the episode ends with Kendall looking at his phone, and I'm assuming he's seeing the news about the raid because they showed on a TV, Waystar being raided, and then they show Kendall looking at his phone, and it looked to me like he was smiling, like not smiling like overtly, but like smiling like how Tyra Banks talked about smiling with your eyes on Top Model. Like he didn't have like a full-on mouth smile, but he looked pleased with what he was saying. And it makes me again wonder, like, is this gonna escalate even further? And it has to. We're only 3 episodes in out of probably 10. It's gotta escalate more. So I'm real curious to see where that's gonna go as well. And then lastly, I mentioned that, Shiv kind of wanted to stay out of it until Kendall forced her hand. And then she also seems to want to let Tom take the fall. And I wondered if Shiv is also going to start feeling some regret over her actions and who she's willing to throw under the bus, her brother, her husband, for not even for Logan, for herself, out of her own selfishness, out of her own desire to have power, if she's gonna feel any regret over that. And I mentioned last week the Trojan horse thing. Like we know Stewie sent that Trojan horse over to that was Rava's apartment, right? And Shiv comes off the elevator at the same time as the Trojan horse, or right after the Trojan horse, right outside the elevator. And I said, I felt like that was some kind of heavy-handed foreshadowing that Shiv is going to end up being a Trojan horse of some sort. And now, even more so, I'm wondering if that is the case, who is she going to be the Trojan horse for? Right now, she's Team Logan. Is something going to happen? Because I do feel like they're going to shift back and forth throughout the season, the alliances. Is it going to get to a point where she's going to actually end up siding with Kendall and kind of take down Logan from the inside? Or is she now so anti-Kendall that she's going to take down Kendall? Not from the inside, but from the inside, but on behalf of Logan. So I'm pretty stringent on the idea that Shiv is going to be this Trojan horse. I feel like that was just some heavy duty foreshadowing. So I'm at 18 minutes. I want to wrap this up. I don't like these videos going more than 20 minutes, but I do have a couple of thoughts. First, Greg didn't have too much to do this week. He had the watch situation, but I've been wondering, and I've wondered this, my wife and I have wondered this since the very beginning, since season 1. I wonder if the story arc ultimately is going to have Greg ending up in charge of Waystar. I feel like it is. It feels very, my friend Otis says this, compared it to this as well. It feels very Usual Suspects, very Kaiser Soze. And I don't think he's going to do it. I don't think this is all an act and that he's purposely angling for this and taking steps to put himself in power. I don't think he's doing it intentionally, but it feels like that is his arc. Like they consistently keep him outside of the core group, but he continues to show very solid decision-making and judgment. And I'm wondering if his lack of investment with the family will help him continue to make sound decisions and actually put him in a position of power. So not too much from Greg this week, but I keep going back to this. And I'm like, how is Greg end up, what is Greg's role to play? And I'm wondering if that's it. Even if it's just like as a figurehead, but I feel like that's Greg's role to play. Couple great lines from Logan in this episode. I loved when they said that Kendall was taking the freight elevator up to his office, and he says, Logan goes, "Great, bring him up the dumbwaiter like a fucking hamburger." I thought that was a great line. And then I can't repeat the line. This is not an age that we live in, but when he chides Roman for his very pro Logan interview, and he's like, "Oh, I love my daddy," and he says, "I didn't take you for I didn't figure you for an F word." I thought that was a hilarious line. You're not supposed to say that anymore, but we're not supposed to say that as people living out in this world. We're not supposed to use that word, but Logan Roy would definitely use that word, and he used it to great comedic effect in that moment. I hate Nate. I'm so tired of, like, why is he even here? Like okay, he was that, Shiv's side guy last season, but he hasn't really been doing much this year. They he shows up in this episode. I don't like him. They play him like he's super sexy. He's incredibly plain looking. I don't know why he sounds like George Clooney to me, but I can we just do away with Nate? I don't like Nate. Probably not a good idea for Logan to tell that White House aide that he can essentially ruin the president. That's probably why he got raided at the end of this episode. That felt very much like a threat to me. It sounded like she was saying that the president was feeling like Logan wasn't being very supportive with the kind of coverage that the president was getting. And it's essentially sounded like she was saying, you know, the president might not fuck with you no more. Like, the president's probably going to distance himself from you. There's photos of you two together. President's going to distance himself. And Logan says something to the effect of like, you know, I can ruin him too, or, you know, something to that effect. Probably not the wisest move from Logan. When Kendall's in Waystar, a security guard comes in there looking incredibly scary. He just stares him down, and he walks over and he whispers, "I know you," to Kendall. Was that on behalf of Logan? Was that just a scare tactic for him to use on Kendall, which didn't work? But I'm curious about that because we don't see that again. But I assumed it was a message from Logan, kind of like the donuts from last week. And then I've been waiting to see, you know, if you watch the trailers at the beginning before this season, I've been waiting to see the context for Shiv spitting into the notebook in that trailer. And now we know that she was in Kendall's office. She saw the boxes for the speakers, so she knew that Kendall was the one who orchestrated this whole prank. She's flipping through his notebook and she spits in it. That'll be a pleasant surprise for Kendall whenever he opens it again. And yeah, I was curious about that, so I was glad to get that scene in there. And now I kind of feel like most of the trailers were in these first 3 episodes. Like, I feel like we've seen a lot of the scene where Tom tells Greg about gives him the mints and says that they're cyanide pills. That was in the trailers. I feel like if I watch the trailer now, which I probably will, I'm gonna feel like I've seen most of this already, aside from anything with Adrian Brody or Alexander Skarsgård. But that's enough for now. I will wrap this one up. I love this show. These are my only videos that go like 20 minutes. I could talk about this show forever. It's phenomenal. So let me know what you thought in the comments. I'll reply to as many as I can. I'll see you guys next week for episode 4. Peace.